A Second Chance at Love. Previous episodes are available in playlist. A link is given in the video description. Episode 69. We want to learn everything. Let's try on the clothes, Mommy. Noticing that her mother was in a bad mood, Estella tugged on Roxanne's hand lightly. Roxanne glanced down at her. Aware that her daughter wanted to divert her attention, she cooperatively nodded and went upstairs with the little girl. Meanwhile, Archie and Benny started studying the various functions of their laptops. What would you two like to learn? I don't mind teaching you. Sitting down beside them, Lucian took the initiative to bond with them. Archie and Benny were just about to log into their respective accounts. The instant they saw their father taking a seat by their side, they furtively stilled for fear of giving away their identities. Archie put on an innocent expression. What can you teach us, Daddy? We want to learn everything. Taking the boy's age into consideration, Lucian pondered for a while. Alas, he couldn't think of anything suitable for them to learn. But in the face of their eager gazes, coupled with the fact that he was the one who proposed it, he could only bite the bullet and declare, I'll teach you some simple programming. Stealing a peek at his brother, Archie glimpsed the distinct reluctance in Benny's eyes. Undeniably, it was a veritable torture for a hacker ranked second in the world to begin learning from programming. Never did I expect her to choose to leave at this hour. I'm sorry. Don't take her words just now to heart. She was merely peeved that I didn't allow her to continue living here. Lucian looked at Roxanne apologetically. Despite his words, Roxanne understood the meaning of Sonia's remarks earlier all too well. She forced a smile. I know. I just hope she's not mad at me. Unfortunately, Benny hadn't any choice but to feign anticipation and bob his head hard to keep their identities under wraps. Thank you, Daddy. Inwardly breathing a sigh of relief, Lucian snagged one of the laptops over and started downloading the corresponding software. While he did that, Archie and Benny silently exchanged commiserating looks at the side. Well? Is Essie pretty? Out of the blue, Roxanne's voice drifted into their ears. Jolted out of their thoughts, Archie and Benny jerked their heads in the direction of the voice. At once, they were greeted by the sight of Roxanne holding Estella's hand, both of them wearing dresses of the same design. Estella even had a pair of petite wings at her back and appeared adorable, just like an angel. Roxanne, on the other hand, wore a blue maxi dress looking beautiful and elegant. Archie and Benny had long since been accustomed to their mother's beauty. Finding their sister cute and unenthused about learning simple programming from their father, they instantly leaped off the couch and sprinted over to Estella. Essie is as pretty as a picture. Did you also look the same when you were little, Mommy? Curiosity was etched across Archie's features. With that simple utterance, he complimented both his mother and sister. Essie is lovely. Are the wings retractable? Conversely, Benny studied the wings at Estella's back inquisitively. Estella loved that design beyond words. As such, she swiftly hid behind Roxanne's back upon seeing that her brother wanted to remove the wings. However, Benny wasn't willing to give up. In no time, all three children were embroiled in a game of tag. Roxanne watched them play with a smile on her lips, tenderness written all over her face. Ms. Estella, Mr. Archie, Mr. Benny, be careful. Soon, the children ran out of the mansion as they played. Worried, Catalina hurried after them. In a flash, the living room plunged into silence. Only then did Roxanne notice the man sitting on the couch with a laptop in hand. "What are you doing?" Never believe him again. The two of them had been apart for 6 years. After bumping into each other again, Roxanne had been averse to Lucian's touch. Since she had finally accepted him, Lucian naturally yearned to make up for the past 6 years all at once. He initially planned on giving her 2 days to recover, but he hadn't expected her to be so enthralling that day. Both her seriousness when she negotiated with Jack and the expression of her love for him while shopping tested his restraint tremendously. The moment he saw her wearing the dress he personally picked earlier, his control slipped further. The kiss lasted for so long that Roxanne was close to suffocating. That aside, she was afraid Catalina and the children would return without warning. Thus, she lifted her hands and shoved at him. It wasn't until then that Lucian dropped his hand from the back of her head and brushed his fingers across her lips. Clocking the intense love in his eyes, she inexorably recalled their passionate interlude the night before. Her heart immediately skipped a beat. She strolled over in curiosity, totally oblivious to the dark look in his eyes. As Lucian sensed her approach, his Adam's apple bobbed imperceptibly. In a deep voice, he replied, "Archie and Benny are very smart. Computer skills can be cultivated from a young age, so I'm planning to teach them personally." With the man's back to her, Roxanne didn't notice his odd demeanor. She sprawled over the back of the couch and pinned her eyes on the laptop screen. Just when she was about to speak, Lucian suddenly lifted his hand and slammed the lid of the laptop shut. "What's wrong?" She turned her head to him in puzzlement, but her lips were captured when she was mid-utterance. "Since Mr. and Mrs. Farwell have moved out, the guest room should be vacant today. I'll go and change the sheets. I'll take the guest room tonight," she murmured guiltily. After saying that, she spun around to make a run for it. "Verily, I can't stand his stamina anymore." Unexpectedly, Lucian stood up and scooped her up from behind in a bridal carry. "Whoa!" Gasping in fright, Roxanne instinctively lifted her hands and wrapped them around his neck. In a voice that left no room for argument, Lucian stated, "Ever since you moved into the Farwell residence, I've never thought of having you stay in the guest room." Hearing the truth from him at long last, Roxanne was embarrassed and irked. But still, she kept the children in mind and protested softly, "Put me down. The kids will look for me when they come back in later." Nonetheless, Lucian remained unmoved. "Catalina will look after them. Back when you were away, she took great care of them. I still need rest." Roxanne's voice turned into a mere whisper. At that remark, hesitation crept into Lucian's eyes. Consequently, a spark of hope rose within Roxanne. In the next second, however, he started striding ahead as resolutely as ever. "I'll be gentle." Roxanne's face visibly fell. "If it were anyone else, I'd really hit him where it hurts. But then, this is Lucian." Early the next morning, Roxanne's waist was horribly sore when she woke up. "You're awake?" All of a sudden, Lucian's slightly hoarse voice sounded beside her ear. Roxanne was stunned for a few seconds before raising her eyes and casting her gaze over. At the sight of the indulgent smile on the man's face, defiance blazed in her eyes. Perceiving her resentment toward him, Lucian stretched his hands out and massaged her waist spontaneously. I stopped when you fell asleep last night. Following that comment, Roxanne's brows furrowed, and she sounded incredulous. I passed out last night. Right after that, her face flushed bright red. She furiously rolled over, loath to face the man beside her anymore. Last night, I only passed out because he put me through the ringer. Yet, he's feigning concern here. How hypocritical of him! Lucian turned sullen. It never crossed my mind that you'd be so tired. I'll definitely be more careful next time and allow you enough rest. I'll never again. Enduring the pain at her waist, Roxanne sat up from the bed. In a weak voice, she interrupted, "There's no next time. I want to sleep in the guest room. I'll never believe him again, especially when we're in bed." Having finally had a taste of her, Lucian wouldn't possibly allow her to escape him. But at the thought that he had indeed gone a tad too far last night, he could only relent smilingly. "All right. You take the master bedroom while I take the guest room, okay? Quick, lie down and rest for a bit. I'll drive the kids to kindergarten. I'll be back before you know it." After he had said that, he carefully helped her lie back down. Then, he got up and took a shower. Not the time for a falling out, Daddy. Downstairs, Catalina was serving the 3 children breakfast. When the children saw that Lucian had come downstairs, they all greeted him in unison. Subsequently, Estella asked morosely, "Where's Mommy, Daddy? My dress is spoiled." Upon hearing that, Lucian scrutinized her with a frown. Estella was wearing the dress Roxanne put on her last night, but the wings at the back had come off at some point in time. "Where are the wings?" he questioned in a baritone voice. Wearing a recriminating expression, Estella turned to Benny beside her. Benny proceeded to raise a hand apologetically. "I accidentally tore them off. I'm sorry. I'll help Essie fix them." His voice dripped with remorse. Patting Estella on the head in consolation, Lucian crouched and took a closer look at her dress. He remembered that the wings at the back of her dress were indeed detachable. Regretfully, he didn't pay much attention to the actual mechanics of it. After studying the dress for a long time, he stood up and declared, "It isn't spoiled. The wings can still be reattached. But then, we've got no time for it now, so have your mommy help to do it tonight." Estella eyed him dubiously. Mild exasperation flooded Lucian when he saw that his daughter had so little faith in him. On second thought, she's more attached to Roxanne, so this is nothing usual. Hence, he nonchalantly changed the subject. "The clock is ticking. We're going to be late if we tarry any further." At once, all 3 children sped up. After breakfast, Lucian drove them to kindergarten and gave Caden a call before heading back to the manor. To his surprise, Roxanne was already downstairs, eating breakfast with her brows knitted together when he returned. "Why didn't you sleep in?" Throwing a look at Catalina, he strode over to Roxanne and sat down beside her. He naturally placed his hands at her waist and started massaging with the perfect pressure. As the pain at her waist subsided, Roxanne glowered at him in aggravation. "It's not the weekend today, so I've still got to work." Following the incident with Jack, she realized that she needed to interact more with the employees, especially right then. Otherwise, a single slip might result in Jack poaching them away. Consequently, it might lead to the core of the medicine's research and development being leaked. A frown marred Lucian's countenance. Jack has replied to you. At the mention of the man, a headache assailed Roxanne. No. I think he's reluctant to accept my terms. Judging from his attitude, he'll likely fight us to the bitter end. Anyway, the only repercussion for Damaris Group at the end of the day is making less money. Unlike them, we can't sign a contract with other companies before Damaris Group breaches the agreement. Even when this batch of medicine is successfully developed, we won't be able to do anything with it. The more she brooded over it, the more she felt that the situation was disadvantageous to them. On the contrary, Lucian's only concern was her health. Since he hasn't come around, it's okay if you don't go to the research institute today. You might as well rest at home. However, Roxanne shook her head in disagreement and told him about her concerns. I can't shake off the feeling that I can't allow this matter to drag on. To this very day, the Research Institute hasn't found a suitable medicinal herbs supplier. As such, now isn't the time to have a falling out with the Damaris family. At the sight of her in a bind, Lucian's expression likewise turned somber. He had promised to teach her management, so it went without saying that he would do so wholeheartedly. The actual reason for curtailing the percentage of the Damaris family's profits previously is to lower their expectations of the profit split. At the same time, when we make concessions later, it'll also reflect the Research Institute's utmost sincerity. Wish life can be thus every day. Roxanne listened to Lucian's explanation intently. Then, Lucian added, all you need to do is stay firm on Jack's bottom line, then raise the percentage of the profits bit by bit. If he really wants the profits, he'll definitely capitulate. After hearing that, Roxanne nodded in understanding. I get it now. Lucian arched a brow. As expected of the mistress of the Farwell family. You're smart indeed. At his teasing, Roxanne feigned irritation and snapped her head back to order Catalina to help get the guest room ready. Alas, Catalina was nowhere to be seen. Who are you looking for? Lucian sounded as though he had seen through her entirely. Where's Catalina? Roxanne huffed. Sure enough, Lucian had anticipated that reply from her. He regarded her in amusement. Why would she be here when this is our time alone? Having said that, he increased the pressure of his massage. Or do you want her to witness how I serve you? At his quip, Roxanne blushed bright red and lifted her hands to slap his away. Aware of her intentions, Lucian apologized with a chuckle. Okay, I'm sorry. I dismissed her because I knew that you're shy. Only then did Roxanne's expression ease. Thereafter, Lucian questioned meaningfully, I'm a pretty good advisor, hey? Are you not planning on thanking me when I taught you so much earlier? Roxanne promptly stilled imperceptibly. The instant she raised her eyes, she noticed that he was staring at her fixedly, his gaze blatantly roving over her lips. Kowtowing on to his intimation, she put down her fork in feigned calmness and asked in return, wasn't that what I deserved? I'd even passed out last night. At the mention of the events last night, Lucian tactfully put his bluster away. Smiling, he agreed, indeed, it was what I owed you. I misspoke again. But you're worn out today. The matter with Jack can still be put off for a while. Just rest at home for a day if there's nothing important. While speaking, he glanced at her waist worriedly. His scrutiny made her both mortified and galled. Her waist truly ached, so she had no choice but to relent and rest at home first. Nonetheless, she felt bad at the thought of the employees at the research institute. "Don't you have to go to work?" she queried in bemusement, her gaze fixated on the man in front of her. "Not today. I'm staying home to take care of you." Seeing that she had finished eating, Lucian leaned over and scooped her up. He headed upstairs right away. Since Roxanne knew that her strength was no match for his and all struggles would be futile, she allowed him to do as he pleased. He carried her all the way upstairs and placed her down carefully. Whirling around, he got her a ton of snacks and placed them at the head of the bed. On top of that, he thoughtfully poured her a glass of water. Just when she thought he would go to the study to handle work matters, he flipped open the covers and snuggled in before reaching out and pulling her into his arms. "Is it really fine that you're not going into the office? And you don't even need to settle some work matters online?" Roxanne was still a touch anxious. However, Lucian merely hugged her and kissed the side of her neck. "Today, no work is as important as you. Back then, I'd already tired you out the whole night, and you even had to wake early to go to work. That was my mistake. I'm not going to repeat it again this time." Recalling her feelings when she woke up alone that morning, Roxanne contrasted that with the bliss of the man's warm embrace then. Gradually, a smile bloomed on her face. "How I wish life can be thus every day." The sensation of a soft body in his arms had Lucian uncontrollably tighten his arms around her. Unavoidable responsibility. Roxanne allowed herself only a day of rest at home. The following day, Lucian tried to persuade her to stay home, but she was hesitant. When she was about to give in, she received a call from Linda. "Dr. Jarvis, we have encountered some problems with Damaris Group. We might need your help to resolve them." Linda sounded serious. Roxanne's expression, too, darkened. What happened? She could tell Jack might have lost his patience and thrown a fit. Initially, she had intended to follow Lucian's advice and give Jack the cold shoulder for a couple more days before discussing the distribution of profits with him. To her surprise, Jack's patience has worn thin much quicker than anticipated. Roxanne somehow knew what Linda was about to tell her. "The medicinal herbs we use to develop our drugs have run out. When we reached out to Damaris Group for a restock, they refused to provide us with the necessary materials." Linda, who did not participate in the negotiation between Roxanne and Jack, had no idea the two sides had parted on bad terms. She was struck dumb when Damaris Group declined her request. That was why she immediately called Roxanne to ask for help after regaining her senses. Upon hearing that, Roxanne's expression darkened slightly. "Do we not have any medicinal herbs left?" Linda responded, "We do have some, but it's only sufficient for small-scale production. However, since we've finished the product registration, we're preparing to start mass production. Therefore, the limited quantity we possess won't be enough. Moreover, we've already invested a substantial amount of money into the production workshop, so it won't be feasible for us to cover the costs in a short period of time." The scarcity of medicinal herbs will significantly impact our production, resulting in substantial losses to our business. In other words, they must get their hands on the medicinal herbs as soon as possible. Once again, Roxanne's expression darkened. After pondering for a while, she said, "Got it. I'll figure it out. As for the registration, find a way to delay the process while I try my best to solve the problem." Not knowing what had happened between then, Linda did what she was instructed. Upon ending the call, a look of worry washed over Roxanne's face. The heated argument she had with Jack last time had created a difficult situation that needed to be resolved. It was a problem worth contemplating, but time was not on her side. What kind of trick is Jack up to now? Lucian was on the side listening to her phone call, and he vaguely heard that the problem was related to Damaris Group. It seems they had stopped supplying medicinal herbs to the research institute. As soon as she heard his voice, Roxanne felt a sense of calm wash over her. She proceeded to share her thoughts with him and the unexpected situation. "I'm afraid Damaris Group has had it up to here with us." Lucian arched his eyebrows and embraced Roxanne to comfort her while analyzing the current situation in a deep voice. "Jack wants the money, but more importantly, he wants to get hold of the patent for this batch of medicine. Damaris Group is known for its medicines, so patents, to them, are more appealing than money." Roxanne nodded in agreement. "But I don't understand why he does this to us. Isn't he afraid of damaging Damaris Group's reputation?" The news of the medicine's launch had spread like wildfire, and countless patients were eagerly waiting for it, hoping it would be a lifesaver. However, Jack's selfishness caused a delay in the launch. If the public learned about this, it would deal a blow to Damaris Group's reputation, as they had always claimed to be in the business of doing well by doing good. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. With a hint of indifference in his eyes, he uttered, "That's just how Jack is. He's using this to pressure you into taking a stand. If the product's release is delayed, it could result in negative public opinion. And this will reflect badly on the product, and your research institute will be held accountable for it." Being too kind to you, Roxanne knitted her brows upon noticing the severity of the situation. She no longer appeared as relaxed as she did yesterday. "The research institute can't sit here and do nothing. Patients can't afford to wait any longer. I'm going to the research institute now." She got up and went upstairs to change her clothes. Lucian decided to keep mum as he knew it was impossible to stop her. When she came downstairs, he said, "I'll not go with you this time. I've explained the situation clearly, so you should know how to negotiate with him." Roxanne appreciated Lucian's trust in her abilities. She responded with a grin. "Okay. I'll look into it myself." Lucian nodded and added, "Call me if you need my help." Roxanne hummed in acknowledgement before leaving the mansion. Upon her arrival at the research institute, Roxanne spotted Linda anxiously waiting outside her office with her face filled with distress. As soon as Linda saw Roxanne, she greeted her with eagerness, as if the savior had arrived. "Dr. Jarvis, what are we going to do now? The factory has been calling to inquire." The factory was ready for production, and they were just waiting for their registration qualifications and the necessary medicinal herbs. However, they had received neither of them, leaving the project hanging. Roxanne comforted her with a smile. "I'll talk to Mr. Damaris now. Don't worry. Linda nodded and stepped aside. After walking into her office, Roxanne's expression slightly darkened. She then picked up the office phone and gave Jack a call. Jack deliberately took his time answering the call. "Ms. Jarvis, what's the matter?" Roxanne said calmly, "Please let me know when you're available, Mr. Damaris. I wish to talk to you." Upon hearing her address him as Mr. Damaris, his face darkened, and his tone became increasingly cold and sarcastic. "What else is there to discuss between us, Ms. Jarvis? Didn't we already make it clear during our last meeting? There are only two options available for Damaris Group and the Research Institute: either terminate the collaboration or increase Damaris Group's share." Roxanne lowered her eyes. "You're just pressuring me to accept the second option, Mr. Damaris." As soon as she finished speaking, she heard Jack snort coldly. "You reap what you sow, Ms. Jarvis. I wanted to have a heart-to-heart with you and reach a middle ground on the matter, but it seemed you'd decided to follow Mr. Farwell's lead. While he might be a sharp businessman, he's a fish out of water in the pharmaceutical industry." Roxanne's expression changed, revealing a flicker of aversion towards Jack. "Let's not drag anyone else into the discussion, Mr. Damaris. This is between you and me," Roxanne said, attempting to divert to another topic. "May I know when it would be convenient for you to discuss the matter?" Jack retorted, "Oh? Did Mr. Farwell come up with another brilliant idea?" Roxanne pursed her lips before responding, "No one else is involved in this. It'll just be the two of us. I'm sure you're aware that the ones who will bear the brunt of the postponement of the product launch are the patients who rely on it." Jack finally agreed after hearing it would be just the two of them. "You're right, Ms. Jarvis. I don't want the patients to suffer. Let's meet at noon today." "Very well, I'll come and meet you," Roxanne replied. Jack let out a baffling chuckle. "Of course. By right, you should have come to me the last time too. I've been too kind to you." This statement unequivocally restored the two to their status as business partners. Nevertheless, Jack pulled an attitude and sounded condescending. A changed man. It didn't take long for Jack to send Roxanne the address of the meeting place. She took a glance at the message and noticed that the place he had chosen was the cafe where they had a fight previously. "I guess he's trying to use the chance to humiliate me, hey?" If this had happened in the past, Roxanne would have rejected to meet with him without hesitation. However, since she was at her wit's end, she could only make the appointment on time. When she arrived, Jack was already seated in the cafe, casually fiddling with the aroma lamp at the side. He showed no response even when he saw Roxanne enter the cafe. Roxanne lowered her eyes and greeted him, "Mr. Damaris." Looking as if he had just noticed her, Jack turned his head and flashed her a polite smile. "Ms. Jarvis, you're here. I didn't notice you. Come, have a seat." Roxanne gave a slight nod before sitting down beside Jack calmly, only to see him still messing about with the aroma lamp nonchalantly. Sensing her gaze, Jack explained in a low voice, "The fragrance in the lamp has a calming effect. In order to avoid getting into a fight with you like last time, I'm trying to make it burn faster." His confident tone made it seem as if the aroma lamp would really have an effect. Roxanne retracted her gaze and pursed her lips. Smiling, she said, "If you have the same goal as me, Mr. Damaris, we would naturally not quarrel. Jack fiddled with the aroma lamp for a while more before finally stopping when he was satisfied. Turning to look at Roxanne, he asked, "Oh?" Roxanne answered seriously, "The original purpose of developing this medicine focuses on the patient's benefits and is aimed to reduce the burden on patients." Acting as though he had heard a joke, Jack snickered. "In that case, why would you care so much about the profit share, then? Isn't it good enough for you to have the medicine on the market?" Jack thought that Roxanne would say something to refute him, but unexpectedly, the woman simply nodded in agreement before saying, "Well, that's what I thought at first. As long as the medicine can be successfully listed, I don't care if all the profits go to you." At that, Jack frowned lightly while a flash of surprise flitted across his eyes. Roxanne continued, "That being said, it was all thanks to you that I realized that as the person in charge of the research institute, I am not only a doctor, but I am also responsible for the lives of the employees. Mr. Damaris, I'm sure you're aware of just how hard the research and development process for the medicine is this time. If the research institute failed to rake in any profits, I'm afraid the employees will be very disappointed in me. It will be difficult for the research institute to retain its employees in the long run." This was the warning that Jack gave her during their last meal together. It was also something Lucian had taught her over time. "I have to protect the interests of not only the patients but also the employees." Hearing her reason, Jack burst out chuckling while nodding his head. Lapping his hands, he started, "Your words ring true, Ms. Jarvis, but what you just said must have been taught to you by Mr. Farwell, right?" Seeing the disdain glinting in his eyes and the contemptuous expression on his face, Roxanne felt her heart go cold. She recalled the time when she first met Jack at the medical consultation. Her impression of the man was that he was a very qualified heir to a prestigious family of traditional medicine. She felt that he was gentle, courteous, and an all-around gentleman. "When everyone doubted me, Jack was the one who stood up for me and chose to believe me. But now, it seems like he has changed into a different man. He's ignoring the patient's lives for the sake of profit." Begging for it, Roxanne explained, "I told you before that this has nothing to do with him. He doesn't even know that I'm here today." Tamping down the odd feeling surging within her, she tried her best to remain calm as she stared at the man before her. "Mr. Damaris, the reason why you're doing this is to increase the share of profits for Damaris Group, right? But unfortunately, it's impossible for me to agree to a 50% share. Since that's the case, why don't we meet each other halfway?" Jack sneered. "For your sake, I hope it's true that Mr. Farwell has no idea about our meeting today. Otherwise, should he suddenly appear halfway through our conversation, I don't think we'd have anything more to talk about." Not wanting to hear Lucian's name coming out of Jack's mouth again, she cut in, "Just tell me what the lowest share you can accept is, Mr. Damaris." Jack answered without hesitation, "As I have already mentioned a long time ago, even if Damaris Group does not take the lion's share, the least would be a 50-50 share with the Research Institute." Showing no sign of relenting, Roxanne pressed on, "We can pay 3 times the price for the medicinal herbs provided by Damaris Group. As for the sales channels, we can also find another company to cooperate with." This meant that our cooperation with Damaris Group is only in the initial phase. What happens later is simply a pure trading relationship. So tell me, Mr. Damaris, why should I split the profits 50-50 with you? To that, Jack said, because right now, you're the one who's begging me. He was certain that he was the one holding all the cards at the moment, and he reckoned Roxanne had no other choice but to oblige. Roxanne stated, 30%. That's the best we can do. When Jack heard that, his expression darkened, and his tone was mixed with sarcasm when he said, in that case, I don't think there's a need for us to talk today, Ms. Jarvis. The last time we met, she proposed that Damaris Group get a 28% share of profits. That was why we ended our meal on a sour note. And now, she has the gall to propose a mere 2% increase? If that's the case, we could have just negotiated this on the phone. Roxanne pursed her lips and kept silent, her eyes shining with a look of determination as if saying that it was impossible for them to give in any more. Time ticked by. When Jack realized Roxanne was not budging, his expression changed, and he critiqued, "That's the best you can do. Well then, I guess you don't really take the lives of those patients seriously, hey?" Although Roxanne looked as calm as ever, her heart was actually lurching. In the end, she decided to take one final gamble. If you can't accept this, then we have no choice but to change our medicinal herb supplier. To tell you the truth, the Research Institute has already found a supplier. However, I still think that the medicinal herbs produced by Damaris Group are of higher quality when compared to other companies. The reason why I'm still trying to negotiate a deal with you is so that the patients can buy better medicines for less money. What she was implying was that if Jack refused to take the deal, the Research Institute would have to turn to another company that would take it. A look of bafflement flitted across Jack's eyes. The quality requirements for this kind of medicine are very strict, so how is it possible for Roxanne to have found another supplier already? But now that I think about it, Lucian was also present during our previous negotiation. Although Farwell Group has never dabbled in the field of medicine, they are not without connections in this area. If Lucian offered his help, it is not impossible for the Research Institute to find another supplier in a short time. With that thought in mind, the look in Jack's eyes turned solemn, but he was quick to hide it. Just like that, the two of them were in a stalemate as they kept their silence to see who would yield first. Time passed, and Jack was the first to lose his patience. He muttered, "Since your resolve is firm, and the medicine is also of great importance to Damaris Group, let's each take a step back. Damaris Group will take 40% while the Research Institute will take 60% of the share of profits." Taught you well. Seeing that Jack had finally capitulated, Roxanne inwardly heaved a sigh of relief and continued to lower Damaris Group's profit split. Damaris Group will take 35%. From the moment he spoke first, he had already lost. He remarked with a scowl, "You really know how to conduct business, Ms. Jarvis. I'm impressed." Roxanne replied calmly, "I merely stated the facts. Besides, in the future, we'll be purchasing the medicinal herbs by ourselves, so Damaris Group won't suffer any losses either." "Seems like Mr. Farwell has taught you well," Jack sneered. Instead of continuing that topic, she added, "Oh, right. The collaboration between the Research Institute and Damaris Group isn't long-term. Thus, the profit split is only applied to this project. Any collaborations between the two entities in the future will be discussed if and when it happens. Jack's smile slowly turned cold as he could no longer control his expression. As expected from you, Mrs. Farwell. You really are an expert in conducting business. The fact that he kept bringing Lucian up ticked Roxanne off. Her countenance darkened as she spat. If you want to chat with Mr. Farwell that badly, I don't mind calling him over. I just wanted to point out that you've changed a lot after getting together with Mr. Farwell, Ms. Jarvis. Staring at her meaningfully, Jack commented, to me, you're supposed to be just a doctor. When did you become so opportunistic? He was basically hinting at her that Lucian was merely using her for his own benefit. Upon understanding the meaning behind his words, Roxanne was amused. I wonder if Jack can still say the same thing if he learns Lucian told me to agree to the 50% split and use the opportunity to learn medicine from the Damaris family. As he observed the change in her expression, he narrowed his eyes. I feel like the thoughts running through her mind right now are things I don't want to hear. His expression turned frigid as he realized that. Then, he silently glanced at the aroma lamp with an icy look. When he faced her again, he nonchalantly changed the topic. How are you planning to set the price for this batch of medicine, Ms. Jarvis? Roxanne contemplated that matter before. Just as she was going to reply to him, he spoke again while gazing at her intently. There are medicines like this overseas, too. Even though their effectiveness is worse than ours, their price range from 700 to 1,000 each. The more expensive ones could sell for more than 10,000. The word profit was scribbled all over his face. However, as if she didn't hear him at all, she uttered, 120. Proof of course, Roxanne did her research before setting the price. Because of that, she became even more aware of the pressure the patients faced. If the medicine cost too much, many people wouldn't be able to afford it and could only wait for their doom. That was a tragedy she didn't want to see occurring again. Yes, my price is low. However, as I said before, I'll buy Damaris Group's medicinal herbs. Once the production of the medicine has matured, the cost of manufacture will drop greatly. Additionally, if the patients are able to afford the medicine, they'll continue to buy them. This way, Damaris Group won't suffer any losses. The only downside is that the profit will be a little low, stated Roxanne confidently. However, Jack just stared at Roxanne as though she was an idiot. What makes you think people will trust that the medicine is legitimate and buy them if you set the price this low? Pursing her lips, she insisted, someone will buy them. Once they do and realize it works, thousands more will follow suit. Jack's expression froze as a look of disbelief flashed past his eyes. Moments later, he inquired with a complicated expression, one pill will cost 120. Furrowing her eyebrows, Roxanne uttered, one box. What? He was bewildered. Did you not do any market research at all? Or did I not explain myself clearly earlier? The market price for medicines like this is at least triple your price. As he thought about the numbers she proposed again, he sneered. Even if we don't compare your price to the market's, there's no way you'll break even with that amount. Do you know how expensive Damaris Group's medicinal herbs are? Do you think your research institute can conduct the research without cost? It seems like I've overestimated Mr. Farwell. His teachings are clearly inadequate. I can't believe how naive you are. Moreover, when the medicine hits the market, it'll have Damaris Group's brand on it. The company has garnered an excellent reputation over the past century, so people will believe in the product when they see Damaris Group's name. That's why I won't give up on Damaris Group that easily. Upon seeing how stubborn she was, he was too lazy to argue with her. You should at least set the price at 300 per box. As doctors, we must consider the issue from the patient's perspective. 300 is still too expensive for them. I disagree with that price, refuted Roxanne. In response, Jack used her own words to question her. Didn't you say you wanted to guarantee the employees' benefits? How are you going to achieve that with such a low price? Do you think everyone's as benevolent as you? Upon hearing that, Roxanne wavered as her expression shifted slightly. That is something I failed to consider. Tightening her fist, she insisted, I'll explain the situation to them. I believe they'll understand me. Most of the research institute's employees were personally hired by Harvey, and she believed her teacher had a good eye when it came to people. Additionally, she was confident that long-term profits would be guaranteed. Lastly, she was sure that if people spread the good word about the medicine, she could use it to assure the public that other medicines developed by the Research Institute in the future would be trustworthy. Then tell them yourself. Jack stood up from the couch coldly and looked down at her. I came to negotiate with the utmost sincerity. I even accepted your condition that Damaris Group would only take 35% of the profit. However, I didn't expect you to be this stubborn. Roxanne responded by staring at him quietly. Even if you successfully convinced the employees in the Research Institute to accept your pricing, my people won't agree to it. Therefore, if you insist on selling each box at 120, then I rather let this medicine rot in the warehouse. His tone was resolute, expressing his disinterest in further negotiation. Just as he ended his sentence, he turned around and headed to the exit. Still, she refused to give up. Do your words reflect old Mr. Damaris' attitude, Mr. Damaris? I don't believe old Mr. Damaris shares the same opinion as him. Without even turning his head, Jack answered, My grandfather has gotten senile, so I'm in charge of Damaris Group now. Contact me when you've changed your mind. Roxanne sat in the cafe for some time before returning to the Research Institute. The result of the discussion was slightly out of her expectations. She was under the assumption that as the heir of the Damaris family, Jack would prioritize a patient's survival regardless of how much he cared about making a profit. Also, she assumed he could accept the marketing strategy of increasing sales by reducing the financial gain margin. To her surprise, Jack was very dissatisfied with the price she offered and even denied her the opportunity to negotiate. How is it, Dr. Jarvis? When will Damaris Group resume the supply of medicinal herbs? Linda approached Roxanne the moment the latter stepped into the Research Institute. Roxanne forced a smile and said to Linda in resignation, I'm not making any headway for the moment. Please delay the registration process as long as you can. As for the factory, if they are impatient, you can offer them more money. Linda had served Roxanne for many years, so she could tell Roxanne was caught in a tight spot at that moment by taking in her facial expression. I got it. I'll handle these issues. However, Our employees in charge of developing this medicine are getting restless." Upon hearing that, Roxanne slightly knitted her brows in anxiety. Most researchers at the research institute hoped that the success of inventing that medicine could help them make a living. Now that the medicine had been developed, and they could finally be rewarded after the drug was marketed, the process was unfortunately stuck at the final phase. At that instant, Roxanne couldn't help but doubt herself. Is Jack right? Am I too naive to assume the simplicity of this matter? Not everyone can regard a patient's survival with utmost importance like me, after all. Left as soon as he finished his sentence. Roxanne stared at the exit for a long time before giving up and looking away. After contemplating for a long while, Roxanne decided to stand firm on her original intention, so she said to Linda in an undertone, "Pay their bonuses in advance using my name." Linda suddenly recalled something and asked, "Some time ago, Mr. Damaris also announced his will to provide the employees with incentives from his own pocket. When he banks in the money, refund the amount to him," Roxanne interjected without hesitation. "This is the most critical moment during our negotiation. I cannot allow Jack to have too many interactions with my employees. If he knows we haven't found a backup supplier for our medicinal herbs, he might even refuse to accept a 35% share." Linda hummed in agreement and turned around to execute Roxanne's orders. Roxanne stayed in her office alone and mulled over the discussion with Jack in the afternoon. On her way back to the research institute, she couldn't help but imagine how Lucian would have responded if he had been the one to negotiate the terms with Jack. "I reckon he must have some ways to convince Jack to accept selling the medicinal herbs at that low price." She repeatedly picked up her phone and placed it back down as she hesitated to seek guidance from Lucian. However, she gave up on that thought ultimately after some careful ponderation. She had decided to face Jack on her own because she wanted to assess how much she had learned from Lucian throughout that period. Roxanne felt Lucian must have believed in her capabilities, too, for allowing her to engage in the discussion alone. "Only half a day had passed since my meeting with Jack turned south. I think I should give myself more time. It's not entirely impossible for me to resolve this issue on my own." With that thought in her mind, Roxanne picked up the telephone on the office desk. Then, she started contacting the medicinal herb suppliers that she had previously worked with and found their herbs' quality acceptable. Unfortunately, the suppliers flinched when they listened to her stringent requirements for the medicinal herb standards. They even doubted the existence of the top-quality herbs mentioned by Roxanne. No need be hasty. Roxanne couldn't help but feel a little discouraged after failing to establish contact with any satisfactory medicinal herb supplier after making calls for the entire afternoon. She had contacted almost all of the medicinal herb suppliers that had previously collaborated with the Research Institute. "If I can't find an up-to-par partner, my only choice will be to put more effort into sealing the deal with Jack. In that case, the Research Institute will be in a disadvantageous position." Roxanne couldn't figure out any solution even as evening arrived. At that moment, Lucian called. She recomposed herself before answering the phone. "Are you getting off work now?" His voice was filled with concern. Hearing his voice, Roxanne felt unbidden grievances surge within her. Still, she forced a chuckle as she didn't want to let her emotions show. "Not yet, but there's nothing much to do today, so I can get off work anytime." "What's the matter?" Lucian frowned slightly as he sensed something amiss about her tone. I'll go and pick you up, then. Let's fetch the kids from school together. Roxanne subconsciously relaxed when she heard he was coming. A hint of anticipation crept into her heart as a genuine smile spread across her countenance. Okay. I'll wait for you. The two stopped talking and hung up the phone. Roxanne was worried he might discover her downheartedness when they met later, so she tried her best to pull herself together. Linda entered her office. Dr. Jarvis, aren't you leaving yet? Is the matter regarding the supply of medicinal herbs very challenging to deal with? Can I help in any way? Roxanne's face wasn't as pale and tense as before after she talked to Lucian on the phone. She was further touched after listening to Linda's kind words. Beaming at Linda, she said gratefully, "That's not necessary. You won't be able to provide me with much assistance since you just returned from overseas and lack connections. I'll have to trouble you to pay more attention to the operations at the factory, though." Linda hummed in agreement before bidding Roxanne farewell. Then, she got off work first while Roxanne stayed in her office. Roxanne finally got up and left when Lucian called and informed her that he had arrived at the Research Institute's entrance. When she exited the building, she saw Lucian leaning against the car and looking down at his phone, seemingly focused on his work. Roxanne grinned at the sight of him concentrating on his phone. She hastily approached him, making minimal noise in the process as she planned to scare him. However, Lucian exposed her mischief and caught her red-handed. He pinched her chin, planted a kiss on her lips, and chirped, "I saw you the moment you walked through the doorway." With that, he kept his phone and gentlemanly helped her open the car door. Roxanne blushed slightly. She scanned her surroundings and breathed a sigh of relief after noticing no one was looking in their direction before getting into the car. Lucian walked around the vehicle to open the car door on the other side. "How was the discussion with Jack? I noticed you seemed a little moody." Roxanne's gaze darkened at the mention of her meeting with Jack. She replied evasively, "We've already finalized the profit division, but we need to debate further regarding the issue of the medicine's pricing." Lucian glanced up at her via the rear-view mirror. He saw her gazing downward and subconsciously placing her intertwined hands on her knees. It was apparent to him that she wasn't being honest, as that was her habitual gesture when telling a lie. He didn't need to probe further to know that the negotiation in the afternoon didn't go well. Nevertheless, sensing her reluctance to elaborate, Lucian decided to have faith in her and give her more time to tackle that problem. Then, he started the car engine. Instead of inquiring further, he uttered in a deep voice, "Back and forth is an unavoidable part of doing business, so there's no need to be hasty." Roxanne nodded. Being intimate in public class had just ended at the kindergarten when Lucian's car pulled up outside the front gate. The two of them got out of the car and stood at the front gate as they waited for the kids. It wasn't long before they sensed the gazes from the other parents falling on them. "Isn't that Mr. Farwell? Hey, I can't believe he's with his ex-wife." "Who are you calling ex-wife? They're about to get back together, so you need to watch what you say." "I've always felt that Ms. Jarvis had an air of sophistication about her. She and Mr. Farwell are a match made in heaven." As the crowd continued to gossip about them, Roxanne felt a little uncomfortable and stepped behind Lucian, lowering her head to avoid their gazes. Having noticed her response, Lucian reached out and wrapped an arm around her waist. As though to declare their relationship to everyone, he then pulled her into his embrace. Roxanne's face burned bright red when she realized people were staring at them. "Let go of me. There are lots of people watching. The kids will also be coming out soon," she exclaimed while struggling a little in his arms. "Being seen by the parents is bad enough as it is. I don't know what I'd do if the kids see us like this. The embarrassment would probably kill me on the spot." However, Lucian ignored her protests and tightened his grip on her instead. After a few more failed attempts at breaking free, Roxanne had no choice but to give up on struggling. Even so, she still maintained an awkward position in his embrace to put a little bit of distance between them. As the gossiping from the parents reached her ears, Roxanne wished the ground would just open up and swallow her whole. "I shouldn't have agreed to come pick the kids up with Lucian." A woman in the crowd noticed her reaction and reminded the others softly, "Hey, cut it out. She heard us." Roxanne instinctively glanced in the direction of that woman's voice when she heard what she said. That woman let out a nervous chuckle when she met Roxanne's gaze. Roxanne flashed the woman a thankful smile and maintained her awkward posture as she continued waiting for the kids. She began struggling again when she saw the first group of children appear at the school gate with their teacher. This time, Lucian let her have her way and let go of her waist before holding her hand instead. While holding hands was considered normal for couples, she still felt a little embarrassed. "We're not a young couple anymore, and yet, we're being so intimate in public." "What? I can't even hold your hand?" Lucian asked in displeasure when he noticed her frown. Having been snapped out of her train of thought, Roxanne shifted her gaze between their hands and the displeased look on Lucian's face. Eventually, she gave in and gently wrapped her fingers around his hand. The next thing she knew, Lucian adjusted his grip and interlocked fingers with her. Roxanne heard the parents around them inhaling sharply, but there was nothing she could do except pretend she didn't hear a thing. Fortunately, the three kids' class was one of the first to come walking out. The children stood in a neat line while marching toward the school gates under their teacher's guidance. "Daddy! Mommy!" the kids exclaimed happily when they saw their parents standing in front of the crowd. Everyone around them went wide-eyed with shock when they heard the way the kids addressed Lucian and Roxanne. Even the parents, who had already picked up their kids, stood around and watched nosily, reluctant to leave. They had been seeing the news about Lucian and Roxanne on television every night, but this was the first time the two had made an appearance together after the recent news report. On top of that, the two of them were being very intimate with each other in public. They did not need tutoring. Roxanne felt quite uneasy when the kids called them daddy and mommy in front of so many people. This was the first time she had made her relationship with Lucian public in front of the parents and teachers at the kindergarten. Regardless of whether they had remarried or not, everyone around them already saw her as a member of the Farwell family. Before Roxanne knew it, the kids had squeezed their way through the crowd and wrapped their arms around her and Lucian's legs. "Daddy! Mommy! Why have you two come to pick us up together today?" Benny asked curiously. Roxanne simply kept quiet and turned toward Lucian. "I happened to get off work early, and your mommy didn't have to work overtime today, so we came here together." "What's wrong? Do you kids not like it?" he said casually and naturally, as if they had already been a loving family for decades. "We love it," the three kids replied in unison. Mommy, could you and Daddy come pick us up together every day from now onward? Estella asked in an adorable voice. Roxanne had wanted to tell her that she would come as long as she had the time to, but changed her mind when she saw the expectant look in Estella's eyes. All right. I'll try my best to. Pippa was smiling happily when she saw the sweet and harmonious family of five. Despite what the public is saying about them, the changes in Estella's condition all this while prove they're the most suitable for each other. Roxanne left with the kids after saying goodbye to Pippa, who simply smiled and waved at her as usual. I made some preparations. We can start the basic lessons once we get back, Lucian told Archie and Benny all of a sudden on the drive home. It took Roxanne a few seconds to realize he was talking about teaching them to use a computer. Oh? He even made preparations in advance? I didn't expect him to take it so seriously. As Roxanne turned around and saw the pleading look in Archie and Benny's eyes, she could tell that the two geniuses obviously didn't want to start learning from the beginning. Roxanne then let out a chuckle and told Lucian, "Come on, let's not rush things now. They just finished a day of school, so we should let them get some rest. The lessons can wait until the weekend." Noticing that Roxanne was helping them out, Archie and Benny quickly played along. "We're tired, Daddy. We need some rest." Naturally, Lucian wasn't going to force anything on them. "All right, then. Make sure to get ready for your classes on the weekend," he replied with a nod. Archie and Benny dreaded those classes, but they smiled obediently and nodded anyway. "Okay, Daddy. We'll be prepared." As Estella was sitting very close to them, she could clearly see that they were reluctant to take those lessons. Although she was confused by their reactions, she knew better than to ask them about it. Fearing that Lucian would talk about teaching them to use the computer again, the kids immediately ran back to their bedroom after dinner. Having noticed how much the kids resented the topic, Lucian asked in amusement, "Do they hate computers, or is it too early for me to teach them this stuff?" Roxanne glanced in the direction of the stairs and saw that the kids were already nowhere in sight. "They don't need you to teach them at all." She then shifted her gaze back toward Lucian as she continued, "Archie and Benny grew up in my mentor's research institute. They displayed amazing talent for information technology at a very young age, and that's especially the case for Benny. One of my colleagues at the research institute had been teaching them how to use a computer after noticing their talent, so Benny excels in this area." Pulling a prank. The serious look on Roxanne's face got Lucian wondering just how skilled Archie and Benny were with computers. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Estella stared curiously at Archie and Benny as she asked, "Do you two not want Daddy to teach you?" As Archie and Benny had no reason to keep secrets from her, they nodded honestly in response. Estella frowned in confusion. "Do you two not like computers? Daddy's really amazing, you know. You two will become professional hackers if he teaches you." Lucian used to tutor her personally back then, but he had to stop because she started losing focus due to her condition. He never continued those lessons after that. "If Daddy had continued teaching me, I would definitely be the best hacker out there right now. At least, that's what Daddy told me." Archie and Benny exchanged glances as they whispered in her ear, "We'll let you in on a little secret here. The truth is, we're already very skilled with computers, so we don't want to start learning everything from the beginning." Estella's face was filled with disbelief when she heard that. "I'm better at using a computer than the other kids my age only because Daddy personally taught me." "Who could have taught Archie and Benny?" Noticing the look of doubt on her face, Benny pulled out his computer and demonstrated his skills with it. "Watch closely." Despite what he said, he actually hadn't thought of how he would showcase his skills. The look of doubt in Estella's eyes intensified when she saw him staring blankly at the computer screen. "I can teach you if you don't want Daddy to, Benny," she said with a serious expression. "I may not be as skilled as Daddy when it comes to such things, but I should be good enough to teach Benny." She was about to take the computer out of Benny's hands when he came up with a bright idea. "Wait! I know what I can do." Archie and Estella stared at him in confusion as he booted up the computer and typed rapidly on the keyboard. A few seconds later, a string of codes began running on the screen. Archie and Estella kept their eyes on the screen as they waited eagerly to see what would happen. Benny's eyes were filled with excitement as well. "I'm the second best hacker in the world, but I haven't tried hacking into the system of Daddy's company. People say his company has a really skilled team of technicians in the IT department. They should be off work by now, so I'll try pulling a little prank on them." At around 8 in the evening, the computer screens of all the employees at Farwell Group went black for a few seconds. The next thing they knew, a video clip of 3 kids dancing hand in hand with their buttocks bare appeared on the screens. "What the? Who has the audacity to hack into Farwell Group's computer system?" someone exclaimed in shock after realizing that it was the work of a hacker. Most importantly, Farwell Group had the best cybersecurity in the industry, so they couldn't imagine anyone being able to hack into it. On top of all that, the hacker had gone through so much trouble invading their system just to pull a childish prank on them. Angered and frustrated, the employees who were working overtime in the IT department got all riled up and typed away furiously on their keyboards. However, the look of disbelief on their faces only intensified as time went by. "This hacker merely planted a tiny virus in our system, and yet, we can't seem to bring it down no matter how hard we try." A similar situation. Caden rushed over to the office when he received a call from the manager of the IT department at 9 in the evening. He went wide-eyed with shock when he saw the clip of the 3 kids dancing with their bottoms bare on the screen. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to solve an issue that even their technicians couldn't. Caden was about to call the police about the attack when one of the employees said, "Wait a minute. This situation feels kind of familiar." Everyone shifted their gaze toward him upon hearing that. The employee scratched his head nervously as he continued, "If I recall correctly, Pearson Group received a similar attack back then. Their screens also had a clip of a child dancing. Mr. Farwell sent me over to resolve the issue." He was halfway through his sentence when his supervisor smacked his head and cut him off. "If you know what this is, then hurry up and take care of it. I wasn't able to fix it that time." In the end, it was Mr. Farwell himself who resolved the issue and repaired Pearson Group's security system, the employee explained. Everyone exchanged nervous glances when they heard that. "Farwell Group is paying us a really hug salary to work here. What good are we if we can't handle a simple virus like this and end up troubling Mr. Farwell to fix it for us?" But the technicians could only let out helpless sighs as they stared at the dancing kids on the screen. They knew they were unable to resolve the issue on their own. Fearing that the virus would corrupt the files in their system, they had no choice but to call for help. "You guys continue working on this while I contact Mr. Farwell," Caden said, making a prompt decision. As he wasn't a part of the IT department, there wasn't much he could do in that situation except swallow his pride and give Lucian a call. Meanwhile, in the Farwell residence, Lucian was about to take his family out for a walk after dinner when he received a call from Caden. The look on his face grew solemn when he heard that the IT department needed him to resolve the firewall hack. "Got it, I'll head over right away." "What's wrong?" Roxanne asked in confusion. "Something happened at work. I need to head over and have a look," Lucian replied. He then threw on his coat and walked out the front door. The three kids exchanged glances when they saw the serious look on his face. "See, could that be due to the virus I planted? Shouldn't everyone be off work by now, though? That virus I planted was a very simple one, so they shouldn't need to trouble Daddy with it, right?" Benny reassured himself as the three of them sat on the couch and watched television. As nobody said a word, the entire living room fell silent all of a sudden. Roxanne, too, was feeling a little depressed as she recalled the negotiation with Jack earlier that day. Meanwhile, Lucian rushed over to Farwell Group as quickly as he could. He couldn't help but feel an odd sense of familiarity when he saw the three kids dancing on screen. That was especially the case when he noticed the three kids were two boys and a girl. Upon realizing that the boys looked similar to each other, he thought of the three kids at home and what Roxanne told him earlier. As Lucian grew increasingly confused, the supervisor approached him and said cautiously, "Mr. Farwell, this situation is similar to the one at Pearson Group back then." Lucian shot him a glance before sitting down at one of the workstations. With an expressionless look on his face, he typed in a command on the keyboard. A few seconds later, a string of codes appeared on screen. The employees gathered around out of curiosity, only to gasp in awe as Lucian easily took care of the virus in a matter of minutes. Is the company doing all right? Just as the crowd thought Lucian would stop, they saw him typing another string of code to trace the hacker's IP address. After he was done, he stood and faced the members of the IT department, who lowered their heads in guilt. Not only did they revere Lucian because he was their boss but also because of his impressive skills. They had no choice but to submit to his questioning. "Farwell Group didn't pay you all a high salary to do nothing." Lucian was dissatisfied. "This is the second time it has happened already, yet none of you solved the problem or figured out who the hacker is." The crowd exchanged glances silently. Right then, someone steeled themselves and explained, "The hacker's far better than us, Mr. Farwell." "We suspect," Lucian snorted meaningfully. Cutting him off, the crowd turned to Lucian in puzzlement. While they weren't paying attention, he returned to the seat and looked at the culprit's IP address on the screen. He appeared shocked but proud at the same time. His expression confused the crowd, prompting them to wonder if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Upon closing the window, Lucian uttered, "If none of you can't even win against two children, then it's time to self-reflect." "Two children? Is Mr. Farwell mocking us?" Lucian was too lazy to explain the situation to the others. He turned to Caden and ordered, "Cancel the bonus for everyone in the IT department this month." With that, he left. The employees of the IT department lamented in their minds. Everything was going fine with our overtime work until a hacker suddenly penetrated our system and caused us to lose our bonus. What is this terrible luck? Yet, none dared to voice their thoughts because Lucian had solved the problem they were supposed to. By the time Lucian left the IT department with Kaden, it was nearly 10 at night. Just as he arrived at the company entrance, he stopped, lifted his head, and stared at the night sky. When Kaden saw Lucian stop moving, he thought the latter was angry and spoke carefully. "Please don't get angry, Mr. Farwell." The why before he could finish his sentence, he heard Lucian say, "I want to use the small helicopter from the last time later. Make the appropriate arrangements for me." Kaden was about to ask Lucian more questions, but the latter stepped past him and got into the car. Seeing that, he swallowed the questions at the tip of his tongue and made calls to fulfill Lucian's request. Lucian drove all the way back to the Farwell residence. Upon entering the building, he saw Roxanne and the children were still in the same spots as when he left. Prank upon noticing the serious atmosphere around her family, Roxanne approached them in confusion. At the sight of their savior, the children quickly hid behind her. "What's the matter?" Reflexively, she shielded them and gazed at Lucian with worry. Lucian looked at her and then at the children, feeling amused and exasperated. "You should ask them. Even though they're still young, they're quite bold in response." Roxanne turned to look at the children. "We were wrong, Mommy," Benny apologized as he gripped the hem of Roxanne's shirt. "Can you ask Daddy not to get angry? We were just goofing around," Estella chimed in. "We didn't expect to trouble Daddy, we're sorry, Daddy." "We won't do it again," Archie said sensibly. Confused by the children's apologies, Roxanne turned to Lucian. Lucian approached the children and pinched their cheeks. "If I hadn't gone to the company, Mr. Lawson would have called the police." Upon hearing that, they felt even more guilty. "We know we were wrong, Daddy. Please don't be mad at us. It's my fault. I wanted to hack into the company's system. If you want to blame someone, blame it on me." He didn't notice how anxious the children were until after he discovered the hacker's IP address. When the children saw his return, they shuddered and quickly approached him with ingratiating smiles. "You're back, Daddy? Is the company doing all right?" Furrowing his brows, Lucian pretended to stare at them with a serious look. "None of you have anything to tell me." The moment he ended his sentence, the children promptly exchanged silent glances while looking dejected. Benny came forward. "I just wanted to prove to Essie that I'm really good with computers." Then he grumbled, "Besides, I only infected the system with a simple virus I created as a prank. I didn't expect the employees in Daddy's company would fail to deal with it and have to ask Daddy for help." His complaint amused Lucian even further. "It's all right. I don't blame any of you. I was just surprised by how talented you all are." A smile settled on Benny's countenance when he heard his father's praise. "It's evident that we can skip the basics. This week, I'll be testing all three of you. Then, based on the results, I'll draw up your future curriculum," Lucian added. Without hesitation, the children agreed. They were aware that his skills were above theirs. Finally understanding what had transpired, Roxanne reprimanded, "You three went too far. How could you hack Daddy's company's system as a prank?" Then she turned to Lucian anxiously. "Did the company lose any important documents?" Lucian smiled at her comfortingly. "No. The boys were mindful of their actions and only played a prank on my employees, but their computer skills surprised Caden and almost prompted him to call the police until he was reminded to contact me first." Hugging his mother's leg, Benny said cheekily, "It was really just a prank." Lucian's assurance and the children's cheeky acting extinguished Roxanne's desire to admonish the children. She reminded them in a severe tone, "I know all of you are talented at operating computers, but it's not a tool for pranks. They should only be used for beneficial purposes." The children nodded obediently and apologetically. Seeing that Roxanne was somewhat angry, Lucian hugged her in front of the children. "They're still young. Besides, they've learned to be more mindful today. I'll teach them the rest in the future." Bedtime story. Roxanne blushed with embarrassment as Lucian acted intimately with her in front of the children. Upon witnessing their father defending them, the children said to their mother confidently, "That's right. We're still children, so you can't get angry at us, Mommy." Then, when they saw their parents hugging, they tactfully turned around and closed their eyes. "It's getting late." Roxanne struggled out of Lucian's embrace frantically. "The children still need to attend school tomorrow and rest soon." Lucian released her and said, "I'll bring them to their bedroom. There's something else I want to talk to them about." The children's faces fell even though they already had a feeling their father wouldn't forgive them that easily. Thinking Lucian would talk to them about that incident, Roxanne nodded and watched him bring the children upstairs. After bathing the children, he watched them lie on their beds. "Are you still angry at us, Daddy?" Benny hid half of his face under the blanket. "Will you forgive me if I tell you about the hole in the company's system?" When hacking into the company's system, he discovered a hole in its advanced firewall, so he inserted a secret program into the virus. After the virus was cracked, the program would activate and patch the hole in the system. Lucian patted the boy's head. "I'm aware of it, and I know you all patched it." Benny sighed in relief. "Then are you still angry?" Lucian shook his head. "I was never angry at any of you. I just wanted to tell you all a story." The children's eyes lit up. "Daddy's going to tell us a bedtime story." His nod spurred the children to tuck themselves into their blankets obediently and close their eyes. "We're ready. You can tell us the story now, Daddy." They were excited because it would be their first time listening to Lucian telling them a bedtime story. Lucian began, "Once upon a time, there was a man called Jack." "Is this the story about Jack the poet?" Archie opened his eyes and stared at his father with curiosity. Grinning, Lucian nodded. Benny lifted his eyelids, too. "I know this story. Mommy told us before." "Then do you know the moral of the story?" Lucian asked. Upon hearing that, Benny turned to his brother. Archie furrowed his brows and thought about the question quietly for a moment before answering, "The moral of the story is that we should study and don't waste our talent. Otherwise, we'll end up like Jack." Benny nodded seriously. "They have pretty good comprehension." Lucian smiled. "I'm happy that you two know the moral of the story. We know what we did wrong, Daddy." We promise we'll study hard in the future. You can monitor us," the boys apologized in unison. Their attitude was a lot more genuine compared to earlier. Lucian caressed their heads and tucked them in. "All right, it's getting late. You all should rest early. I'll leave after you've fallen asleep." The children nodded obediently and closed their eyes. As he promised, he only left after they fell asleep. In the wild, Roxanne had been sitting in the living room, waiting for Lucian to return while feeling bothered and worrying about the children. When she saw Lucian descending the stairs, she asked caringly, "Are they asleep?" Lucian went over to the couch and sat beside her. He took in the tired expression on her countenance and pulled her into his embrace. "I'm fine. Just feeling a little worn out." Roxanne forced a smile. Instead of panicking, like when the children were around, she nestled in his arms. Lucian kissed her forehead, held her hand, and stood up. "When I returned from the company earlier, I noticed the weather was good today. I want to bring you out for a ride." Roxanne frowned. She wanted to say she wasn't in the mood for it. However, Lucian didn't give her a chance to object as he dragged her to the entrance. Afraid they would wake the children up, they quietly stepped out and closed the door. Even though they were in their own house, they were acting like thieves. When Roxanne realized that, she thought it was funny and stopped feeling gloomy. "The children were already asleep when I came out earlier. Don't wake them up. I only want to bring you out tonight," said Lucian, seemingly detecting her feelings. At that moment, it was past 10 at night. Roxanne shuddered when the night breeze blew past her. The next second, a warm coat landed on her shoulders. She turned back and noticed the regret on Lucian's face. "I should have grabbed more clothes for you since it's nighttime." Just as he concluded his sentence, he spun back. Roxanne grabbed him. "I'm fine like this. What about you? Are you cold?" Lucian held her hand and planted a kiss on the back. "I'm good." Hesitation flashed past her eyes when she saw the thin shirt on his body. Before she could utter another word, he forcefully pulled her into his embrace. "That's better." He sounded satisfied as he brought her to the vehicle. The car moved slowly toward the outskirts of the city. Roxanne's face was still flushed as she admired the view outside the window. When she noticed the gradual lack of cars passing them by and an increase in the density of trees, she wondered out loud, "Where are we going? Why do we look like we're going to a mountain?" Lucian replied plainly, "We're going to the mountain." "Why are we going there so late at night? We can just ride around our neighborhood." As she spoke, she noticed a weird expression forming on his face. "There are too many people around there. It's not convenient. I'm afraid people will call the cops if they see what we'll be doing." Lucian cocked an eyebrow and glanced at her mysteriously. As his vague but suggestive words repeated in Roxanne's mind, she felt her cheeks burning. Is he planning? At that thought, she wrapped her coat tighter around her body. "How about we just head back? It's so cold outside right now." "I thought." Roxanne stared at the desolate environment outside the window in panic and disbelief. "I don't think this is a good idea, Lucian. Let's just head home now." She sounded upset as she wrapped the coat around her tightly. Lucian couldn't help but chuckle when he saw the panic on her face. "What's so bad about this idea? Do you know what I'm going to do? Roxanne's eyes darted around. Aren't you planning to? Before she could finish, she noticed the car was slowing down. Lucian glanced at her before alighting from the vehicle. With no other choice, Roxanne swallowed her words and looked outside. Her panic transformed into confusion when she saw the scene outside the window. Everything's prepared, Mr. Farwell, reported Caden as he respectfully stood beside the car. Lucian nodded, walked to the passenger seat, and opened the door with a teasing smile. This really can't be done near our home. Now that you've seen what I have in mind, do you still want to go back? In the distance was a helipad brightly lit by a few searchlights. Several helicopters of varying sizes were sitting neatly on the helipad. One of the helicopters was the one used to pick them up from their home last time. Roxanne remained dumbfounded for a long while before she returned to her senses. So, what you said earlier. You meant you wanted us to fly in a helicopter. She didn't want to say no outright because she feared her guess was wrong. She could only subtly express her desire to return. However, Lucian was unwilling to do as she asked. It took a long time for me to find this spot. Since we're already here, we might as well take a look first. If you don't like it, we can return right away. Raising his eyebrow, Lucian answered, What did you think I was talking about? The only reason I could fly around the city last time for a short period was that the government approved it for an emergency situation. Roxanne blushed and glared at him with embarrassment. Why didn't you say that earlier? I don't mind if that's what you want. No way. Roxanne's eyes widened. Her embarrassed and frustrated look made him smile as he grabbed her wrist. Come on out. I'm taking you to relax. Roxanne got out of the car with Lucian's assistance, and Caden greeted respectfully, Mrs. Farwell. His words caused her to blush again. Thank you for your efforts. Lucian is such a scoundrel. I forgot Caden was around earlier. He must have heard everything we said. Oh God, how am I going to face him in the future? You can go home now. Expect a bonus this month, said Lucian to Caden. Caden gave a reply and left because he didn't want to be their third wheel. Soon, only the couple was left on the mountain. Lucian brought her to a helicopter, then pressed something to open the hatch door. He held her hand again and led her inside. Roxanne examined the surrounding with curiosity. The helicopter was bigger and better decorated than the one from before. The original seat had been replaced by a couch, and the floor was covered in soft carpet. There was even an elegant table inside with red wine and a few snacks sitting on top. I only made this decision before coming home, so Caden had to set this up in a hurry. Lucian's voice rang out next to Roxanne's ear before the door closed. Dim lights illuminated the interior, creating a rather ambiguous environment. Stay with you, sit. Lucian held Roxanne's hand and gestured for her to sit on the couch. After she sat down, Lucian stepped into the cockpit. Roxanne raised her head and watched him operate the aircraft. Moments later, the helicopter slowly ascended into the sky. You know how to pilot a helicopter? She asked, astonished. Lucian chuckled. Truth be told, there are very few things in this world I don't know how to do. Roxanne was stunned for a few seconds. He's not wrong, considering he was born into an extremely affluent family. He has too much energy and money to develop any interests and hobbies he has. It's a shame he didn't show any of it in our previous marriage." Having guessed what was on her mind, Lucian glanced back and said, "I only learned how to fly a helicopter 2 years ago. As for the rest of my skills, I'll show them to you in the future." Roxanne flashed him a small smile. As the helicopter flew high into the sky, Lucian suggested, "Look outside the window." Roxanne looked out and saw the moon and stars that were magnified before her eyes, making her feel as though she could touch them just by stretching her hand out. As she watched the celestial objects in the sky slowly pass her by, she gradually relaxed and felt satisfied. Retracting her gaze, she commented, "It's so beautiful." Lucian was delighted that she enjoyed the trip. "Do you want to look at the sea?" Roxanne nodded at first, but shortly after, she asked in hesitation, "Can I? It's so late already." "It's pretty close, and the helicopter's fast. We'll be there in a few minutes." Lucian was aware of her love for the sea. He speedily turned the aircraft around and flew toward the ocean. Roxanne lay next to the window in anticipation and gazed at the mountains below. Minutes later, the sea appeared in front of her. As the waves rolled by, the stars and the moon reflected on the sea looked as if they were floating on the surface. Roxanne was dumbstruck by the beauty of the scene. Suddenly, Lucian appeared next to her. "Do you like it?" Roxanne nodded subconsciously. Just as she was going to answer his question, she recalled something and pointed at the pilot's seat. "Why have you come here?" Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.